Well, buenas tardes, good afternoon, and thank you very much to the President and to FEPAC for the invitation to speak with you today. I'll assume that you can hear me well and clearly, and I'll continue. Please do let me know if there's any challenges with the video or the audio. Pleasure to be with you. I would very much like to be in person with you in Lima, but unfortunately that wasn't possible on this occasion. So, digitalization is having a profound and significant impact on the entire built environment, and in particular to the construction sector itself. What I'm going to talk about is the public sector, and in particular the collaboration with the public sector to take action to help advance not only digitalization within the construction sector, but also look to transform the outcomes that we can realize from the built environment. So I'm going to take those two ideas. I'm going to begin, first of all, with outcomes. I'm going to talk about some of the challenges that we face, but also some of the outcomes that we're looking to achieve. And I'm going to contextualize the whole of this discussion with the beginning of this outcomes-based view. I'm going to look then at some of the actions that the public sector are taking globally, but also touch on some of the regional activities. And then finally, I'm going to wrap it up with a view on collaboration. How are we actually collaborating together, and what can we do together to advance this agenda to ensure that we get benefits for both the public sector and also the private sector, and also ultimately a better built environment. So when I talk about focusing on better outcomes, I'm in particular interested in outcomes that are relevant to the built environment, such as the net zero agenda, which I'm sure you're familiar with, climate resiliency, getting better value for money, and building a built environment that is of better quality, that meets the needs of the users. Now, digitalization, I'm just going to frame that in this conversation. I'm referring primarily to digital construction, which refers to building information modeling. Building information modeling is an information management process and protocol. Digital twins, and also related ideas such as design for manufacture and assembly, which many of you may be familiar with in terms of off-site manufacturing. And a relatively new idea, which is referred to as digital project management office, which is the idea of building dashboards, information management systems based on performance data. I'm going to contextualize this. The green circle there, or turquoise, is relating to the context within which we're speaking. And I'm going to touch on that. I'm going to touch on some housing examples, going to touch on some infrastructure examples as well. So we've got this idea of an overlap between these three topics. In terms of outcomes, well, clearly the built environment is fundamental. We know this to productivity of a society. It's better it has a massive impact in terms of people's well-being and health and education. But also infrastructure can act as a barrier and a blocker to economic growth. This is a report recently released by UK called Transforming Infrastructure Performance, and it highlights as you can see here, the significant impact that infrastructure can cause challenges, such as energy use if it's not built in the right way. We have approximately 40 to 50% of our energy use and carbon emissions is from the built environment. We know that the rework of construction adds 20%, and we know that train delays, traffic congestion, they all add a significant cost to our economy and to our society. Now, I'm going to talk specifically about the idea of digital and how that is helping to improve some of these challenges. We know that if we can plan better, projects. We know that we can engage with communities, local communities and users of those assets, that we can get better performing assets in the real world. We know that from an environmental perspective that we're able to predict energy use, and we can look 20, 30, 40 years over the life of an asset and understand, and not only its operational energy, but we can also understand its embodied carbon. So how much carbon is it taking out of the earth to create those elements within the constructed asset? We're able to look at the ways in which we can optimize the construction, the actual building phase of the asset, and to reduce not only the carbon element, but also improve things like health and safety. If we build things off-site, we can bring them to site in a very much more safer way, but also we can reduce the waste. If we build things in a manufacturing type of environment, we're able then to precisely procure what we need, rather than sending between 25 and 35% straight to the skip, straight to the dump, which is what currently happens, of course. Using digital through to the operations phase and to the whole life cycle of the asset, we can see that, you know, the future will be digital twins. We'll be able to actually simulate the performance of the built environment and interact with it in a real-time manner to adjust and optimize its performance. This isn't the future, this is here now, today. This is a very small architectural practice in the UK that have delivered this $40–50 million housing estate. This is one of the sections of this housing estate, using off-site manufacture, using volumetric off-site manufacture, which is where the spaces are created in a factory, and those spaces, such as a kitchen environment or a bedroom environment, is brought to site and plugged in. And this has achieved significant savings, not only in the buildability phase, but in terms of the whole life use of energy as well. And that's why it received one of the highest ratings from a sustainability perspective. We've set some very ambitious targets in the UK for what we need to do in the sector. We've said that we need to reduce delivery times by half, we need to reduce costs by a third, and we need to reduce carbon by a half as well. This is getting very close to it. This is a very large, very important mega infrastructure project across the centre of London. It's a wastewater management system to replace some of our very old Victorian sewers and drainage systems. And as we can see here, we've achieved a 20% cost reduction, but also we've reduced the time to delivery by 2 years. So clearly we're making significant inroads, and digital is part of the backbone, part of the enabler for achieving these better outcomes. So that's the challenge, and those are some of the opportunities that we all recognise, and I'm sure for many of you that's familiar. What are we doing in response to that as part of the public sector view? Well, if we go back not very long ago, in infrastructure terms, only 6–7 years ago, hardly any time at all, there were a very small number, a handful of national programs where government was working with industry to help promote the use of building information modelling as an information management process. Just a few. Most of them were large clients, infrastructure clients, building clients that were driving this. But in 2011, that changed. Singapore and the UK set out a national policy view to say, well, actually, if we can improve the construction sector by a couple of %, then we're going to gain a significant improvement in GDP and in those outcomes, in achieving those better outcomes that we spoke of a moment ago. If we fast forward to now, we can see there's a tremendous explosion of these national programs, of these government working with industry programs to drive the digitalization of the construction sector. Building information modeling is the moment of digitalization for the construction sector. It is the foundation in terms of skills, technology, standards, workflow, that help enable better outcomes for the built environment. We can see here that Latin America has come a long way in a very short period of time with the formation not only of some national BIM programs, first of all Chile, which led the way with a hugely successful program with great leadership. They've also helped to drive a regional group and regional activity collaboration with other governments around Latin America, South America, and in particular the countries you can see here with the support of the Inter-American Development Bank that fund their activities. Europe now has 27 governments as part of the EU BIM task group that collaborate on this agenda. And in Asia as well, we see similar activities. The key point here is it's not going back. It is here to stay. Digitalization is only going one way, and that is across public policy and across public procurement and through public sector projects. So we've set up the Global BIM Network, which is to convene and collaborate across the entire global public sector. How we're doing it, how are we collaborating together as the public sector to ensure that the collective effort of our national programs is echoed around the world and it reinforces good practices in the industry. It's comprised of a steering committee, which is made up of about 12 countries, including multilateral organizations such as the Inter-American Development Bank, the Asian Development Bank, ADB, and also the UN Ops, which is the regional office in Latin America. Our goal is very simple. We want to build the capacity of the public sector so that we can be a strong leader and partner with industry to advance the digitalization of the global construction sector. This is our website, globalbim.org. We've started to build the capacity of the public sector to share the knowledge that we have by collecting it, first of all, to create an inventory of all of the knowledge, knowledge resources that we have. We've loaded something around 200, 220, I think it is, knowledge resources that help public sector to work with the private sector to introduce building information modeling and other digital techniques, but primarily BIM, into the public sector policies, public sector procurement practices, public sector procurement organizations, especially. So please do take a look at the globalbim.org, and the information collection is up and running. It was recently released. We've got a webinar as well, I'll mention in a moment. But I want to paint a picture here to say that actually this is not a developed economy activity. We see this across the world. We see that there are large parts, of course, of Latin America that are already adopting this approach and are using the knowledge resources that have been developed to introduce BIM into their public sector projects and also into other projects as well. But we can only see this now going in one direction, and that's forward. Of a matter of interest, I'm sure, to FEPAC is the fact that standardization is a big part of this. If we're going to modernize the sector, we must learn to create reproducible processes. Reproducible processes have had a tremendous benefit and impact on all other sectors: finance, manufacturing, retail, aerospace. All sorts of sectors have benefited from having repeatable processes that are standardized, not only across individual countries, but also regionally and globally. And that's what we see here. One of those core standards is the ISO 19650. It sets out the process and the definition for building information modeling as an information management process. And we can see here from the information collection, we've just done some analysis in the past couple of weeks, which show that 44 countries have now adopted the ISO 19650 as a standard way of managing information in the construction sector. And that, I think, I'm sure, is of great interest to your members and also a great benefit to the sector as well. So what are we doing next, and how can you get involved? If you would like to get involved, please do go onto the website and you can sign up or drop us an email. I'll share the contact details at the end. But this is a look forward. As I conclude, this is a journey that is going to take many years for the sector. We in the UK have been running this national programme for about 10 years, but we can see that this is a slow journey for the entire sector. And so we've put together this roadmap, the Global BIM Network roadmap, which is recently released. And it shows these 3 phases of essentially understanding what knowledge we have, developing new knowledge, and then finally delivering that and ensuring that that is used out in the wider public sector domain and also with industry as well. This has got to be a joint activity with industry and government, and this is our information collection. We want you to provide your knowledge to this. We want you to contribute ideas. We want you to contribute your contracts and ways of working so that they can be better shared and leveraged across the entire network and across public sector projects and private sector projects as well. So please do check out our website, and also you'll find a link to the webinar which explains the information collection in more detail. And I'd like to leave you with this thought that transformation cannot happen by the public sector on its own. It cannot happen within the private sector on its own. The industry is interconnected. It's an interdependent, very much an interdependent sector. And so therefore, we need each other. And I would encourage you very much to join the Global BIM Network. And please, if you have any questions, please do drop me a note, and I'd be delighted to have a follow-up conversation with you. Muchas gracias.